Not sure if this is going to be scary. About 2 years ago, along with three friends, A, B, and C, all girls, I went to an abandoned hospital famous for hauntings. It was clear from the moment we stepped in the building that there was something very wrong with the place, since the cold air permeated inside despite it being a hot summer day. I felt goosebumps prickle my skin. For a while, we kept walking around, going up from floor to floor, until we reached the inpatient ward. There was a nursing station on the same floor, and as soon as my friend A saw, she remarked, "I just saw someone there." That was the beginning of it all. We began to feel scared, but we had come to test our courage, and none of us felt like turning back to go home yet. We decided to divide up in twos and continue with the exploration. I paired up with A, and we chose to explore around the nursing station, and we were just messing around with the stuff there when A, looking pale and shaking, tapped me on the shoulder and said, "I saw a shadow following B just as she went into one of the rooms at the end of the corridor." And immediately after that, she asked me, "Did you hurt your shoulder?" Puzzled, I looked at my right shoulder and some muddy water was smeared all over my white t-shirt, because it was one of my favorite t-shirts. I got annoyed and answered A in a sharp tone, "Hey, you did this when you tapped me on the shoulder just now." A looked surprised and said, "What? I never tapped you on your shoulder." I got scared and shouted angrily at A, saying, "Stop pulling my leg at a time like this." But A answered straight-faced, What are you talking about? I swear, I never touched you." Beginning to feel scared for real, I suggested that we call B and C, quit the game, and go home. A too seemed scared and said that even going anywhere near the room into which B and C had disappeared was out of question, and so we figured we could just call out their names from where we stood. But no matter how many times we called, we didn't get their answers back. I was also reluctant to go near the place after what I heard from A about the shadow following after B. Also, my right shoulder felt strangely heavy and painful. Then A asked me, "Shall we try her mobile?" And she tried calling B. A moment later, we heard a ringing tone coming not from the corridor where B was supposed to be, but from the corridor opposite of it. It caught us totally off guard, and that alone was bizarre enough, but to our horror, the person who answered the call was a stranger, and unmistakably a man. I heard A start pleading into the phone, asking again and again to let her talk to B. In the end, A gave up with pleading and hung up. She said to me, "Maybe we should just go home by ourselves." It was then that A told me about the strange man who had answered our call. We were almost hysterical as we rushed down the stairs. Once we were safely out of the hospital and back inside the car again, we began to feel more relaxed, and I said to A, "Do you think we should call C?" And this time I tried C's mobile. Immediately I heard C's voice at the other end of the line. "Hey, where's B? She just disappeared. Are you two together? Don't tell me I'm the only one left behind. No way." She sounded unexpectedly cheerful, and we breathed a sigh of relief. We told her to get out of the building and come over to us as soon as she could, and then we tried calling B again, but there was still no answer. We pulled our car up in front of the hospital gate and waited for C. Sometime later, C appeared, walking unsteadily on her feet. I looked everywhere, but there's no sign of B. I tried her mobile, but she wouldn't pick up. "I think something's up. What shall we do?" C spoke excitedly as she came closer to the car. We got her into the car and she told us what had happened to them in the hospital. According to C, just as the pair entered one of the rooms at the end of the corridor, B somehow started poking at C's back repeatedly, forcing her to look back over her shoulder. But when C turned around, B had already disappeared. C guessed that B had lost her nerve and gone back to where A and I were. And after receiving our call, C started looking for B on her own. She then heard a man's voice from the lavatory, and being a brave girl, she opened and checked every cubicle in there, but could find no one. She kept yelling B's name, but got no answer, and so she decided to come out, not knowing what else to do. We were discussing about what steps we might take next when we saw B come dashing towards the car, wailing. It was such a relief, and we opened the door to let her in, but she wouldn't get in and only stood there, crying and raving. Just what were you thinking, all of you, ignoring me like that? Do you know how many times I called you? And you were planning to go home without me. Having shouted thus, she suddenly fell down on the spot. We were in a total panic as we called the ambulance. B was carried to the hospital where she died of a stroke. They said it was too late, but that seems strange considering that she was only 26 and that she was treated immediately after she fell. The paramedics also asked me what happened to your shoulder. That made me examine my right shoulder again. Then I realized that what I thought was dirty water was actually some sort of darkened blood. And I also noticed that C's back was covered with numerous similarly bloody handprints. About a year after the incident, C died of leukemia, and still a half year passed before A too died in a car accident, and now I am the only one who is still alive. I just had a stroke this May which had left me paralyzed on my right side, and I am still in the hospital for rehabilitation. But my mind is at rest. Before I was admitted into a hospital, I was nearly driven mad with fear, but I feel strangely at peace now that I'm actually inside the hospital. I wonder if hospitals are protected by some unseen force. It's very strange. I no longer have to be plagued by those nightmares I used to have when I was at home. I am no longer tormented by the shadow I used to see when I looked in the mirror. Now even the idea of staying in the hospital forever seems like an appealing one to me. I feel sorry for the other three, but I think I will survive. Last night I dreamed about a child ghost. According to the ghost you see in the dream is often a real ghost. He also said, ghosts love quiet places, and so they often appear in houses with only one person living in it. So what would they then do? They have no intention of scaring the inhabitant, but apparently only want to do things like watch TV together. But it seems like ghosts sometimes unintentionally let themselves be seen at the moment of appearing and disappearing. Therefore, for example, at the moment when the human switches off the TV to get ready for bed, the ghost may also try to disappear, and in the process of doing so, its image sometimes inadvertently gets reflected off the TV screen. If the human happens to be looking towards its direction, then the ghost tries its best not to betray its presence, said the ghost. But if the human persisted in looking suspiciously in its direction, the ghost would be dismayed and think that it had been spotted, and it would stay hovering around the human until he or she falls asleep. What should we do? I personally think that the thing about the ghost in the dream being a real ghost might be true, because they say you never dream things that you haven't experienced in real life, although you can dream things you have seen in horror movies. And the child ghost also said, when you wake up halfway through dreaming about an encounter with a ghost, that ghost too comes to the real world, and then you will be able to catch a glimpse of it for a brief second. And if that happens in the middle of the night, no harm will be done to you. But if it happens when the sun is already up, the ghost, for a reason I don't know, will turn demonic, and before long you will be cursed to death or something terrible will happen to you. I was scared after reading the cursed story, and because I was alone in the house, I switched on all the lights in my room and the hall leading to the bathroom. But it was all fine in the end. The only scary thing that happened was when, after the bath, I went back to my room and switched on the light, the bag which had been on the hook fell by itself. Now that made me jump. This happened when I was 15. One day I came home from school to find the place where my house should have been had become an empty lot. Of course, I could not have taken a wrong path since I used the same route to go back and forth from home to school every day. And also, it was impossible to be mistaken about the location since the scenery around it was familiar. But strangely, the place had a rundown appearance with weeds growing everywhere, showing it had not become empty suddenly, but it had been like that for at least a few years. In the end, all my family went missing and I was taken into my grandmother's care. I am posting this from my grandmother's house right now. Have you ever heard of anything similar happening before? I'm working now and still trying to find my family in my spare time, but I'm starting to lose hope.
Definitely elevating for the 966. The ill suicidal liable to take titles and make vital signs, but not like no cancer. Answer, there's no chance to advance to ya. Kuya got blazed through ya. The great super science, applying pressure, I desecrate with double O's and bubble folds while I cut you, bro. I juggle flows that goes ballistic, reminiscent of exquisite cannibalistics and a sadistic doctor. My sick shit, notcha, improper.